Hey there, good evening. It is nice to see you. It's always nice to see you for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters, writers, editors, journalists, people of all sorts who put stuff out in the Bronx so we can get some insight and inside. And we're going to do that in our first segment with a top flight City Hall reporter. And then in our second segment, one of the best places in the Bronx, we'll talk about the Bronx Music Hall and an incredible film they're showing and all the other great stuff they do. Right now, let's say hello to Jeff Coltin. Our buddy Jeff is a reporter and co-author of the New York Playbook for Politico. And just for the background, he's been covering New York City politics for a decade, most recently as City Hall bureau chief at City and State, where he authored the Campaign Confidential newsletter. This is how Gary found out about everything going on in politics. Nice to see you, Jeff. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to see you again. Always thank you for having me.
So here's the general question, and then I'll mention the headline. You know, what is Eric Adams, the mayor of the city of New York? What is his thought about the new president of the United States? And your headline was Trump brings down the hammer, Adams stays muted. So presumably, this was the executive order to end birthright citizenship, something which is being constitutionally challenged. And one would think in the bad term to use, sanctuary city, this would be something the mayor of the city of New York would jump and say, no. Where are we at? What's going on out there?
Yeah, so there are two things going on at the same time here. One of them is the policy aspect. And yes, Eric Adams is playing very nice with Donald Trump. He, unlike many Democrats, even in this second Trump term, where people are generally being, more welcoming to Trump than they were in 2017, he is going to the inauguration, canceling plans last minute in New York City to drive all the way to Washington to go to the inauguration. He went to Trump's property in Florida near Mar-a-Lago to sit down with him. They're talking on the phone. He's chatting him up. And he even, surprisingly to everybody, basically said, I am not going to publicly disagree with Trump. The president has been kind enough to me to have a relationship with me where if we disagree, I'm going to disagree with him privately. Now, not every Democrat has that position. So Adams is doing that. He argues that it's better to have a good relationship with the president. And, he's got a point there.
That's undeniable. You certainly would like to do that. Yes.
Exactly. And Trump is a mercurial person, and he does really deal a lot with personal relationships. So, yes, there is a lot of sense to that it's better for New York City if Eric Adams, the man incarnate of New York City, is nice to Trump, and maybe that will protect the city from things like budget cuts and other possible repercussions of a GOP trifecta. So that's point one. Point two.
Into what we're going to talk about further down the line here. Go ahead. I'm following right along.
Good. So yeah, point one is this. Yes, maybe it is just the right political thing to do, but you cannot ignore the fact, point two, that Eric Adams is under federal indictment, and Donald Trump has the power to pardon him or the power to pressure the Justice Department to drop the case. And we've seen movement on this. We have seen Donald Trump himself say he would be open to pardoning Eric Adams, getting him off. And we've also seen the Department of Justice holding meetings with Adams' lawyer, reportedly discussions about dropping this case. So many of Adams' critics, they say, Adams is claiming that he's treating Trump kindly to the benefit of the city, but really his motivation is his own, to save his own skin and to drop the federal case. So I do think it's both of these, and it's a fascinating moment.
And you also, let's just say, you wrote an article, dropping Adams' case could make legal history. The allegations against him, we don't need to review them right now, but they are in other situations, you'd say, wow, these are pretty serious things. And maybe that's, his bottom line is it just seems a little odd that he's kowtowing so um, directly to the president and in opposition to what really a fundamental precept of New York City is as a sanctuary city. And I use that term because, of course, it gets thrown around. But we have welcomed migrants. We have welcomed, of course, immigrants of all over. And here I am sitting in the borough of the Bronx, and it makes sense to say that. In addition, presumably Mayor Adams was not happy about all the migrants that were sent here. And we can debate also how well he did or how not well he did, but he acted, I think, appropriately. Some people can judge, again, good or bad, but he really tried to do something with them rather than taking the opposite stance. The mayor of Chicago, who has really been dealing with ICE agents rounding up people there, and of course we're starting to get it here in New York, is a black man and came out directly against the president and said we don't accept it, et cetera, et cetera. But he's not under indictment. I suppose that would be the difference, right?
Yes, and look, we also saw the same thing with Ras Baraka, the mayor of Newark.
Yes.
There was a ICE raid in Newark, New Jersey, and the mayor came out with a sharp statement basically saying, we don't like the way you're doing this. Effectively, we don't trust ICE. On the other hand, Eric Adams is giving ICE, giving federal immigration officials kind of the benefit of the doubt. He's saying, you know what, at this point, you guys are doing okay, and I'm not going to, jump at it and criticize. And I'll be clear, as far as we know, the mayor is not violating any sanctuary city policies at this point. Yes, there was an ICE raid in the Bronx, but it wasn't like NYPD was handing over people. It was just kind of an independent. There was minor coordination, giving a heads up to the PD that they were coming in, as they always do. But it didn't, as far as I can tell, violate sanctuary city policies. So yes, a lot of Democrats in Eric Adams' position have chosen to proactively step up and say, this is going down a bad path. We don't like this. Eric Adams, on the other hand, is saying, basically, all right, seems fine to me. Like, go right ahead.
Shooting down your reasoning number one would be the idea that thinking that it would help benefit the city and whatever the city gets, something like $160 billion from the federal government, that it will help us. It doesn't seem to have, because I did not hear President Trump say when his plan to cut federal funding. I didn't say we're going to do it everywhere, but we're not going to cut it in New York City. And in fact, the President of the United States right now and for several years has not had New York City on his plus column, so to speak. And so I wonder if that kowtowing can have any effect, because we saw potentially the effect. And frankly, I interviewed the controller of the city of New York the other day, and he was like, I already put out a whole plan of what we're going to do financially, anticipating that New York City's finances would be changed. So I don't know how valid that is. I mean, you've already cast the speculation on it. The other thing which is interesting to me is the relationship between the mayor and the governor. Now, Governor Hochul has also taken some criticism, as far as I could see, for her kind of riding the fence, so to speak, when it comes to Trump's policies. But she, of course, is not under indictment, so that knocks that out. But what do you make of the mayor and his attitude toward Governor Hochul, and vice versa? Do you get the sense that this huggy thing that they do when they see each other is for real, or are they really like, I don't want to have to deal with this person?
No, they personally have a very good, mutually beneficial agreement. Hochul and Adams, I mean, I guess I could say, I don't know about what's personally in their hearts, but politically and publicly, yes, it's a very positive relationship that benefits both of them. The governor wants to have a good relationship with the mayor of New York City, both for policy reasons and also for political reasons. It's very, helpful to have the black mayor of the nation's largest city and the main city in your state be on your side and be constantly praising you. He is always saying, Hochul is great and she's helping me, and they really, both of them, do their best to disagree with each other as little as possible. When it comes to Trump, of course, I think we saw Hochul take the more traditional Democratic path this year. That is to say, when Trump was elected, she said, I am willing to work with him. I will give him the benefit of the doubt. But after these first 2 weeks of Trump in office, she's basically changed her tune and has been criticizing him more harshly. Maybe not as harshly as other
some
Democrats.
other Democrats, yeah.
But still, she's kind of turned on him and is willing to criticize. Eric Adams is not, and has completely still stayed on Trump's good side, even after the crazy things like handing the government over to Elon Musk that we've seen in the past 2 weeks.
Right. I saw there was, and I forget which item it was. There have been so many that 8 governors signed on to a bill or a protest of something the president has done. And I was assuming that New York's governor would be signing to that, but she wasn't on the list. Anyway, last thing, which we only got a minute and a half. The mayor said, and this was reported by you, who started the stupid rumor that I was stepping down on Friday? Are you out of your mind? He said, this was Jeff's writing. He said to a friendly crowd at an annual City Hall breakfast for faith leaders. Was there really a rumor that, I had heard that he was ill, but was there really a rumor that he was like, he'd had enough or something? I seemed not credible.
Among reporters and people around City Hall, there was this rumor spreading among text messages and phone calls that something was going to happen. Maybe more charges were going to happen and the mayor would resign. Nobody reported anything on that because nobody could confirm it because it didn't happen and it wasn't going to happen. And sure enough, the mayor basically pushed back aggressively at that speech. It was his return to public. And his point was, I am still here. I'm not resigning, and I'm fighting for you. He has a very difficult path to re-election. He's polling horribly. He's under indictment. He's got a lot of challenges.
He was not going to be getting matching funds and all that kind of stuff. Now, I moderated as you know, I moderated a mayoral forum, and he was not there. He was certainly invited. But my guess is he would rather just avoid those kinds of things because he knows he's going to be a target from 5 people, and he'll get to it eventually, but he doesn't need to now. Anyway, Jeff, we got to get running. Thank you so much. When I said at the top of the show,
thank you for having me.
Inside, that's what we get from Jeff Coltin, reporter and co-author of the New York Playbook at Politico. Thanks for everything you do. You keep me informed, and if I'm informed, then everybody gets informed. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that.
Okay, great. We're going to take a short break, folks, and then the Bronx Music Hall, the new Bronx Music Hall, one of the best places in the Bronx. They're going to be here. Don't go away. Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I said earlier on the program, the Bronx Music Hall is one of the great new places in the Bronx. I ain't kidding. And as a result, we're bringing 2 great people with us. It is filmmaker and teacher Pam Sporn. Nice to see you, Pam. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
And my longtime friend, the maestro of the Bronx, 9-time Grammy nominee, drummer, percussionist, composer, arranger, band leader, educator, great Bronx guy. It is Bobby Sanabria. Nice to see you, Bobby.
Same here, Gary, as always.
Pam, let's get started with you. This came for me out of nowhere. I'm sure you've been working on it for a long time. The film is called Cuban Roots, Bronx Stories. What made you say, hey, this is a story worth telling?
So this film actually that I'm so honored that is being shown at the Bronx Music Hall, a gorgeous facility with wonderful people. The film we're celebrating its 25th anniversary, and we're doing a 4K restoration, so it's nice and pristine. The film goes back to my 45-year relationship with a Cuban American family, which I'm married into. One of the protagonists is my husband, Pablo.
I was going to say, so now they're your family. It's not an outside family.
Right. Yeah. So
okay.
I love listening to stories, and oral history is a love of mine. And so going from the minute I got to know the Foster family, and they're a family of storytellers, and I would listen, and I always say to my husband, you should really write a book, because it's like just fascinating, the travels from Jamaica to Cuba to the South Bronx and all this kind of 60s turmoil, the Vietnam War. And they weren't writing a book. So I said, well, I'm going to do a film.
There you go.
Worked on it in the 90s, and it was finished in 2000. We had a premiere at the Havana Film Festival back in the year 2000. And it's been it's been shown by many, many teachers and places around. It's been distributed by Third World Newsreel all these years. And I recently decided to have it restored, brought it up to nice new high resolution, and pitched the idea to Elena Martinez and Bobby to see if we could do the re-release.
And here we are. What I want to ask you, and maybe the answers are so obvious, what makes it relevant today, even though a quarter century ago is when it originally appeared? Like it really, I mean, I saw the trailer, it really is relevant today. And what about it still resonates in 2025?
I think it's several things. One is the whole issue of Afro-Latinidad is still a question that's being dealt with within the Latino community. The issue of race is still being dealt with in Cuba. And it's not the same as it was in the 60s when my husband came here from Cuba. It's not the same as the year 2000 when the film was still released, but it's still a discussion. So it's still a relevant piece. Secondly, the issue of immigration and U.S.-Cuban relations and how that impacts families, family separation, how policy of governments impacts real people. That's still just as vibrant and important topic as it was before.
We're going to show the trailer. I'm going to weigh in on one of the things that I like, only having seen the trailer, did not see the film. That of course, is coming up at the Bronx Music Hall. But the notion of diversity in the Bronx, the Hispanic cultures that are all over the Bronx, and we have cultures from all over the world in the Bronx. People don't walk around and say, oh, Cubans in the Bronx, much like they would say Puerto Ricans or Dominicans in the Bronx or even Jamaicans in the Bronx, etc. But you have established through this, and it was clear to me, that there is a Cuban family, so to speak, in the Bronx, right? And that's one of the things here, is to put the flag in the ground.
Absolutely. And
okay.
That history goes back. I mean, as Bobby can talk about, and Elena, about the history of El Club Cubano Interamericano and the dance hall, the programs they had on Prospect by 156. And
got it. I want to show the whole trailer. So
okay.
let's show the trailer. Then we'll come back, and then Bobby's going to talk about number one, the Cuban roots in the Bronx, Cuban music in the Bronx, and then the other great things going on at the Bronx Music Hall. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen, your first look, as it was my first look, at Cuban Roots, Bronx Stories.
My name is Pablo Elliot Foster Carrion. You see me here with my dad, my tia Diana, and my tia Ruben. They are the griots passing down the history of the Cuban side of my family.
Me siento como un americano. Vine aquí a los 10 años. Tengo más de 35 años en este país.
I will be known as the group of people who left the land when people were struggling after the revolution.
We left because you got 7 kids, a mother, and the U.S. threatening to invade Cuba, which they did, the Bay of Pigs.
The Bay of Pigs and La Playa de Girón was, I think, one of the most memorable experience for me towards the end of my stay in Cuba.
So I have to say that as soon as we arrived in Miami, we were segregated. The white Cubans went one way and the black Cubans went another way.
One of the things that I remember about coming to this neighborhood is that I felt, oh, now we're safe. Nobody can invade the United States.
Yeah, it was a tough neighborhood, one of the toughest neighborhoods.
We considered ourselves the same because we were black, so we mixed with the blacks, and we spoke Spanish. So we
mixed with the Spanish.
I know, but they in their minds, they were separate.
Because when I think of Cuba, I think about all these singers, Benny Moré, Orquesta Aragón, and all the things we did.
Para mí Cuba, aún como muchacho, había canciones en Cuba en ese entonces que me daba una cosa en mi vida, un aire, que todo el mundo sí estaba enamorado.
Nunca se me olvida Cuba. Quiero regresar a Cuba.
After 33 years in the U.S., neither my father nor any of his siblings had gone back to visit Cuba.
It gets me angry when they say you can't travel to the place. 33 years enough of this separation, and I think it's about time we reach out. And it's a lot of memories there, a lot of things that you would like to see. And I think it's, for me now, it's about time.
Vámonos con Rubén, Pablo y Diana, que vamos a ver a Tía Catá. Y luego nos vamos para Oriente, y después para Cienfuegos, y luego para Matanzas, ¿ok? Seguimos por ahí para Las Villas.
Ay, Pablo. Mi Pablo.
So we're gonna go.
Entonces, ¿cuándo más o menos vas a venir?
No sé.
Bueno,
cuánto,
en cuanto
depende
tenga las cosas preparadas.
Ajá.
Ok.
Está bien. Pero te voy a escribir.
Yes.
This film is my family's reflection on cultural, racial, and political identity, what was left behind in Cuba and what was discovered in the Bronx. Taking this journey with my family has made me want to claim as my own the history of the struggle for justice and equality that people have waged in Cuba and that my family has joined in the United States. One thing left for my generation of forces to do is to touch Cuban soil. Pisar tierra cubana.
All right, there we go. Congratulations, Pam, on doing something that is eternal. And the thing that I just loved, which was right at the top of that, was we came to the Bronx and we felt safe in the Bronx because we felt the comfort. Bobby, the influence of Cuban music on your work, you of course reach into many different diasporas. Talk to me just briefly, because I want to get to some other stuff about Cuban music.
Well, the influence on me has been ubiquitous, and not only on me, but all Bronxites, all New Yorkers, because the sound of Cuban music is really the pulse of New York City in terms of Latin music. Ever since 1930, when the Don Aspiazu Havana Casino Orchestra came to perform in New York City on Broadway, and the rest is history. And I'm wearing a T-shirt right here of the great Mario Bauza, my old boss from Cuba, from La Habana, specifically from the barrio of Pogolotti in La Habana. He is the father of the fusion of Afro-Cuban rhythms with jazz harmony and arranging techniques, Afro-Cuban jazz, which was born here in New York City.
There you go.
In 1938, 39, with the Machito Afro-Cubans in Spanish Harlem. And that sound came to the South Bronx. And as Pam said, and as you said, many people don't realize the great impact of the Cuban community here in the Bronx, particularly the South Bronx. Artists like Julito Collazo, who was the first person to bring the religious African-based bata drums that came from the Yoruba people in Nigeria to Cuba during the colonial period.
Listen, we could go on. I don't want, Bobby, I don't want to run out of time.
Sure.
I'm very excited about you are starting a Latin jazz ensemble for students age 14 to 18. One of the most, I said it to you, one of the most exciting projects I could think of that Bobby Sanabria is going to be working with young people.
Yes, that's at the Bronx Music Hall. So anybody that's interested in auditioning from that age group, it's a high-level ensemble. So it's not for beginners. It's for already,
somewhat accomplished.
And if they want to audition, go to bronxmusichall.org. And it's by video submission. So you can go there, and it'll be on Sunday afternoons at the Bronx Music Hall.
And you all different instruments, right? Wind instruments.
It'll be a full
Percussion.
big band, yeah. So it'll
Yeah.
be for saxophones, trumpets, and trombones, and full rhythm section. Congas, bongo, timbales, drum set, piano, bass, guitar,
Gee,
etc.
I wonder who in the Bronx is capable of putting together an ensemble like that.
Well, if anybody,
I said that sarcastically. Yeah, the whole
if anyone
point
can do it, it's me.
It's you.
All my
Listen,
teaching experience.
the other thing I got was a list of dance classes. Yawuza will be teaching Ghanaian dance. Juan Yusera joins the staff to teach Puerto Rican bamba on Tuesdays. I'm going to mispronounce this. Janae Sure returns with monthly Afro-Cuban Orisho workshops.
Right.
Bobby, what does this say about what the Bronx Music Hall does and how does it view our borough of the Bronx?
Well, basically, we are the borough of music, and in terms of the things that we do in popular music today, come from the African diaspora, and that's why we're having these classes dealing with Puerto Rican, Afro-Puerto Rican bomba, Afro-Cuban Orisha dance, and Ghanaian drum and vocal and dance workshops that we're having. So go to bronxmusichall.org and you can get more information about those classics. And we also have offering a salsa mambo dance class for seniors as well. So please come to the Bronx Music Hall, the place for all.
This is a dream come true to celebrate all of our cultures in the borough of the Bronx and do it through music. You know, we're preaching to the choir around here. Pam, what's next? We got about 30 seconds. What do you got next? What's coming up? Or you haven't figured it out yet after going through all this?
Well, just encourage everyone to come out on Saturday at 6 p.m. at the Bronx Music Hall. We're having the film. We're having a panel discussion on Black Stories, Enduring Voices, moderated by the Afro-Latino Forum. And having a set by Bobby Sanabria and so what else would you like to do on a Saturday?
Listen, I spent my Saturday night last weekend at the, as Bobby knows, the Bronx Music Hall for a beautiful reggae film, and it was just fantastic. The sound and the video at the Bronx Music Hall is A1, and that's important. Bobby Sanabria, thank you so much for everything. We'll continue doing what we do.
Thank you. We'll see you on Saturday at the place for Bronx Music Hall with Cuban Roots, Bronx Stories, and yours truly with my sexteto y piano. We'll do a whole panorama of Cuban music from 1930 all the way up to today.
Beautiful.
So today, after the film and panel.
We got to run. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Bobby. Also, in our first segment, thank you to Jeff Coltin from Politico. And that's going to do it. You know what we always say, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, we'll be back next week. Good night.